We're live.
Hi, my name is Amit Rele. I'm the product manager for the Orbi. Here we're to talk about something we've been working on for last 3-4 months here now, which finally saw the light of day this morning when we announced the release of 2 new different Orbis. You can see I've got the product here out in front of me, so that's real. We've got 2 new kits. One is an Orbi router with a desktop form factor. This is an AC2200. We're calling it the RBK40. Many ways looks quite a bit similar to the original Orbi. You can see this is a router in the same blue top here, and got the yellow Ethernet port, the gigabit Ethernet port. That gets paired with a similar device out here to form the RBK40. In addition, the other interesting piece of hardware is that we've got this new wall kit here that also pairs with the same router here. Again, both of them are AC2200. So let's kind of take a step back and see how we got here, what some of the drivers were for introducing these new wall products, these new Orbi products. We've noticed that Wi-Fi in the home has been a dramatically increasing sphere. It used to be okay for you to be able to, grab your laptop and move to an area of your house where you had good Wi-Fi. But, we're not really quite settling for that anymore. The rise of all these connected devices, the IoT devices, if you will, tablets and all these different types of devices are just really exploding into the scene. And the periphery effect that it has on Wi-Fi is that you need Wi-Fi everywhere. Not just within the 4 walls of your house, because obviously you never know when your kids will pick up a tablet and go somewhere and sit down and curl up and pull down a YouTube stream or a Netflix stream or something like that. But in the same way, you've got other types of devices like Wi-Fi connected lights and doorbells and all these different voice activated systems like Alexa, the Amazon Echo, that you need not just good Wi-Fi, but highly performant Wi-Fi all the way across your house. The interesting thing that's also happening is that a number of devices in your house is increasing because all these different types of devices are pushing the envelope. And that's also triggered a couple of other interesting things like the whole cord cutting effect. People want to be able to access their high definition video, the 4K streams, wherever they happen to be, whether it's in your living room, your family room, or perhaps even in your backyard. So to support that, we wanted to introduce a line of Orbi. So not just the standard Orbi that we introduced out there in September, but really a whole different line of Orbi in order to bring Orbi into every house. As you know, Orbi is got introduced in about the September-October timeframe and had a lot of market penetration, had a lot of success. But really, we need these Wi-Fi devices to live in with your lifestyle. So to that effect, we're making Orbi into a family here. So again, the whole concept of being mobile, what that means to you is that, let's not just have great Wi-Fi in your living room or your study, because sometimes you want to have great Wi-Fi in your backyard and maybe take a conference call, run a presentation, watch a movie from your backyard, from your living room, in other places where you have some great need for perhaps a little bit of privacy while you're sitting and running a conference call, things along those lines. There's also a whole different set of devices that are happening which are driving the need for connectivity everywhere. What's the first thing that you do when you check into a hotel or perhaps walk into a Starbucks? You get on the Wi-Fi in order for you not to burn your cellular minutes. Well, why is that any different if you're in your backyard or in your front yard? So things like that are really pushing the envelope here. Other things like IP connected video cameras, like we've got a great line of Arlo cameras here at NETGEAR, but there's others out there also, but these all rely on transferring high intensity videos into the cloud, and and what that also drives is that you need not just okay connectivity, but you need great connectivity, and that's exactly what what the Orbi provides. Let's kind of go over to the whole different product line. So, one more. So again, the RBK30, composed of these two capabilities, an AC 2200 rated product, coverage for about 3,500 square feet. It's available today at your favorite retailer for pre-order, and will be shipping very soon. We've got a great price point there. We're quite excited about the move there. At the same time, with the RBK40, which is this router at AC 2200, comes in a kit of two, just like here. The great thing about this thing, you know that you're going to put the router wherever your internet connection comes in. And the value of these two satellites is that you get to choose your form factor and how you'd really decide to use it. The benefit of this device out here, it's got 4 gigabit Ethernet ports. So where I would love to put something like this, in a study, where you've got a printer, maybe a network attached storage, all of these things where you can take advantage of the gigabit Ethernet ports out here. Can you move to the next slide? A couple more. I would also put this over into, like, perhaps in a media center where I could plug in my smart TVs. You know, the thing about smart TVs are the TVs go in your room where they go, right? You're not going to be moving the TV around in your house too often. So what you have to do is that you've got to bring your Wi-Fi into that area. And one of the benefits of this is that you can use the great Wi-Fi that's capable in this device and plug in all the gigabit Ethernet ports into your Apple TV, into your smart TV, your gaming console, and plug all of these things in here and leverage the great Wi-Fi in here through the dedicated backhaul that we have. The alternative use is for the wall plug is that it basically goes into any wall socket that you have. You find an area where you have a little bit, where you need a little bit extra bandwidth, a little bit of extra coverage. You just grab one of these things and plug it into wall socket. Let me show you how this thing works. Let me kind of slide this thing over a little bit over to the right. Out here, I've got a standard wall socket. I just plug it in, and the thing will start to boot up. There you go. And the great thing about this thing, the bottom socket, you can still use it for anything else that you've got going. Comes with a couple of buttons here, a sync and a reboot button, but it's as simple as that. That's how simple it is to deploy this thing. There's no, these devices all come prepared out of the box, so all you have to do is grab the satellite and stick it somewhere in the middle of your house, and it starts booting up here. See, it's real. It's blinking and everything. So, wondering if you have any questions here? Maybe we can kind of poll the crowd.
Yeah, so one of the questions that came through was the range for the different Orbi units that you have here. Maybe we can go back to one of the slides.
Perfect, perfect. So, so each one of these comes in has a different speed rating. Starting from the left, an individual wall plug is rated at about 1,500 square feet. In contrast, the AC 2200 desktop version is rated at 2,000 square feet, and then the original one was rated at about 2,500 square feet. So when we first came out with the original Orbi, we came out rated at 2,000 square feet, but we did a bunch of testing, did a bunch of improvements in the firmware, and we realized that we were a little bit conservative when it went out. So we, based on our analysis and our, we have updated the coverage rating to be about 2,500 square feet. Now, one thing I've neglected to mention, all of these different devices come together in standalone satellites. So what you can actually do is you can grab any of these individual ones and plug it into your existing Orbi kit to add into that capability, into the coverage that you already have. And the reason for that is that they all run the same Orbi OS, if you will. So we've got firmware and feature compatibility across the entire product line. We've got this little button over here on the side that when you plug it in, you press the sync button and it looks for other Orbis for it to attach to. So it's as simple as that to unbox one of these standalone satellites and include it into your existing Orbi kit. So at this point, you've got basically your choices. What speed do you want? An AC 3000 or an AC 2200, or if you want whatever form factor you want. You can choose between the desktop version or the wall plug. And just basically plug and play with whatever works into your system. Any other questions?
Yeah, there's a question that came in from Vintage Fishing. Will we ever have the ability to plug in an external hard drive to our Orbis?
Ooh, an external hard drive. That's an interesting one. I suppose what you're asking for is some sort of a USB mounted one. So there's a couple of ways that we can do this. So if I've got a network attached storage that I've got actually that has a gigabit Ethernet port. Most of the NASs out there actually work faster on a gigabit Ethernet port, and that you can basically plug in and use your PC in order to mount to that storage device and be able to back up your files and things like that. I do that today right now through my Orbi. The other Orbi kit, the original Orbi, also comes with a USB port, and we're actually in the process of activating that for a couple of things. The printers will come first, and we're also looking at long range about doing a USB attach on that.
So we did get some positive feedback about Orbi. So Ian Hesse mentioned that they have Orbi in their bedroom, in the kid bedroom. Works great, so they're really happy with it. So thought we'd let you know.
Awesome, good to hear.
Another question came in. Do you guys know how well AC travels through brick? I have cameras and tech outside at my attached home, cameras, doorbells, etc.
So anytime you have an RF wave, radio wave that is, it gets knocked down a little bit by going through solid material like, something like this, a wall. Now, depending on your type of construction, it does get knocked down a little bit more through brick, but you should still get a good signal on the other side. For example, I do have one of these in my house, but I still get a good amount of coverage in my backyard. Now, will it get knocked down to zero? No. Will it get knocked down some? Yeah, it will. But it depends on a variety of things, including how close to your ultimate destination the wall is. So if you just happen to move, you can move your Orbi a little bit closer to the wall, and it'll kind of get through a little bit further. So maybe you can play around with that a little bit, but it should definitely work.
Great. There was another question that came in, and I think I'm interpreting it correctly. Let me know in the comments if you meant something different. But the question is, it sounds like, how do we know when Orbi is updating? So I know that there's updates that automatically get released to it and automatically updates, but how do we know when it's updating?
So actually, there's two different ways that you can update the firmware on the Orbi, and this is how I'm interpreting the problem. Every night, Orbi actually goes to look to see if there is new firmware available for it. And depending on the schedule of when it reaches back, the system either says, oh yes, there's a new firmware, here it is, and then the router downloads the firmware, it applies to it, and basically reboots. And typically that should happen in the middle of the night somewhere. In case you happen to be a little bit eager, or you notice that there's a newer version that's been published, which actually I encourage you guys to double check to make sure that you're on the latest version, you can actually go onto the orbilogin.com, log onto your device, and under the Advanced tab, there's a setting there for you to check for firmware. I encourage all of you to do that to make sure that you're up on the latest and greatest version. Sometimes you can have a mismatch where you've got a slightly older version on some of these devices, like especially if you plug in a brand new satellite into your kit, or a couple of other conditions where you might have some sort of a mismatch between the two. I encourage you to go ahead and check and double check, make sure that you're on the latest firmware, and download it if possible. Another way that you can also do it is that you can use a laptop to go to the Orbi support page on NETGEAR, download the firmware onto your laptop, and then basically upload it directly into your satellite and router one by one. And that sometimes you can use that if your Orbi isn't somehow connected to the internet or something. It's a fail-safe workaround mechanism that we've also put in place.
Great. So we have another question from Rome, pretty specific. Which system for a 2450 square foot area? RBK 40 or RBK 50?
2450.
So 2,000 or 4,250 square feet.
Okay. For 4,000 square feet, that is well within the reach of the original Orbi, the RBK 50. A couple of things to consider. So, depending on the layout of your house, depending on where the internet is coming in, we give basically guidelines as to how many square feet you can cover, and you just kind of take a look at in terms of what the square footage coverage is. This is basically based on our testing as to how much it's gone. Your individual conditions may vary because every RF environment is different. Every house layout is different, so depending on where the internet comes into your house and where you need it to go, this serves as a handy chart for you to work through. There might be occasions where you also want to consider, like, perhaps there's portions of your property which may not be within the four walls of your house that you also want covered. For example, in a pool area, or for example in a backyard, your side yard, where you might want to put in cameras or things like that. So consider this to be a guideline, but you can also play around with what you get. And like I mentioned, you can buy a kit, or you can buy a kit plus some add-on satellites, and depending on a mix and match, and different packages are available in different locations.
Great. So while we get a few more questions up there, so maybe you can talk a little bit about what's your favorite feature of Orbi as the head PLM for Orbi?
My favorite feature. The one that I use the most is probably the guest Wi-Fi capability. So I've got a bunch of devices at home that perhaps I don't want to give access to for everybody. So I've got all my pictures and all my private files on my private hard drive. Now, as people come in and things like that, the question always is that, hey, can I get on your Wi-Fi? And at that point, what I usually do is I make sure that I give them the guest Wi-Fi credentials as opposed to my private ones, so they get access to the internet, but not necessarily get access to all my Amazon Echo or my file servers or things along those lines. Just for that a little bit extra safety.
Cool. So one of the things that I keep seeing in the chat right now is to talk about range extenders.
Mm-hmm.
So how is the wall plug different than a normal range extender that you get at Home Depot?
Very good question. Very good question. So the key difference between an Orbi and other systems is that between the Orbis, we've got this dedicated backhaul channel that's available. So most systems out there are called dual band systems, which is like two basically types of interfaces. The Orbi has three, and that's the way we call it the tri-band system. This dedicated backhaul between them is only for talking between Orbis, and what that allows you to do is it allows you to avoid the pitfalls of extenders, which is that you talk to the device on a channel, and then the extender basically has to repeat that exact same packet, that exact same message on the exact same channel that headed in a different direction. Now, just by that analogy, you're sending it once, and then you're sending it a second time, which means for every hop that an extender takes, your available bandwidth drops by about 50%. Now, in contrast, what the tri-band allows you to do is that the moment you talk to this device, it's immediately put on that dedicated backhaul, that highway that goes between the Orbis, so that the first channel is immediately available for the next device or the next packet from the same device. So it avoids the pitfall of having to have that 50% penalty on an extender. Another advantage is that most extenders today, they actually have a second SSID that they operate on. So whatever, my SSID, my network name, whatever that is, in order for there to be an extender on the other side, what it does is it creates a mynetwork.ext or something along those lines. So let's say that you're somewhere in between these two devices, right? Now you've got to choose, okay, do I talk to this device or do I talk to this device? And typically what ends up happening is that as you move across there, you end up still staying connected to the original, even though you might be getting a better signal from the extender, right? And the way that Orbi works and the way that it's different is that we use a certain set of protocols. And for the technical guys, it's a 802.11 kV, it's one of those alphabet soups of protocols. But essentially what it does is it allows these two Orbis to work together to make sure that there's handoff and the device talks to whatever the best channel, whatever the best Orbi that there is. So we manage that handoff, so as you're walking across your room, listening to some music or watching a stream of video or whatever have you, it doesn't, you don't buffer, packets don't get dropped. You still have that music still working on that same beat even as you do that transition. And that's one of the great benefits of having a Wi-Fi system over an extender.
All right, so we're at the 21-minute mark, so let's go ahead and give it a few more minutes,
Okay.
maybe 1 or 2 more minutes for some questions.
Absolutely.
And then we'll go ahead and close out.
Sure.
Yeah, if you want, can you talk about any of the future ideas that we have that we're planning on putting in Orbi?
Yes. That's the fun part about being a product manager. Looking at other, figuring out what to do next and what to do the thing after that. We spent a lot of time working on this, and now that this product is out, now I get to look at even more future features. There's a couple of interesting things that have bubbled up, and we've got a couple of different places where you can suggest different features to put in. There's a Reddit forum, there's a NETGEAR support forum that you can go in and vote for your future features. A couple of interesting ones that have come up and that we're looking at very hard is we're obviously upgrading the mobile app experience. There's a couple of really cool things that are coming up in the mobile app. We're looking very hard at doing things like Ethernet backhaul. We're also looking at lighting up that USB port on the original Orbi to make it available. We're looking at having, doing interesting things to the topology and the things like that. I think you'll be quite pleased with some of the things that we've got in our back pocket. We've got things, really geeky things in RF land that will make it, the Orbi even faster than it is, and we're continuously looking at things like that. Things like that probably don't get the really cool, sexy appeal that you get, but they're really important to us because we're really trying to strive to get the best performance out of these devices that are out there. We know that you've spent your hard-earned money on trying to get better Wi-Fi, and we're committed to making the Wi-Fi much better in any way that we can.
Great. Good. There's some good comments on here. So Illinois Video at Large mentioned they're able to get Wi-Fi in their basement. That's great. And I know that Chaziko was also talking about the single SSID and how that's awesome too. So a lot of great features for Orbi.
That's really where it becomes fun. I've done a couple of installs and going and seeing people who when they originally before Orbi, they live their life where they live it, right? And in their house. And it's really frustrating for them to be in a portion of the house where they can't get connectivity. And then you plug in the Orbi, plug in the wall plug, set it up, and then all of a sudden they're in their living room or in a dining room or whatever area where they didn't have great Wi-Fi connectivity before. And then I was in an install a couple of weeks ago where the living room, the area where they spend the most time in was the worst part of the house in terms of Wi-Fi. They plugged in the Orbi and the husband and wife both sat down on the couch. They both fired up 2 different Netflix streams, started watching 2 different shows on their laptops, and it completely lit them up. I mean, it's like, oh my God, we never even, we used to flip over to cellular in this location, and now it's like I've got, 2 streams of Wi-Fi happening. And what that really means and what that really translates to is that they're able to share FaceTime videos with their kids' grandparents from where the kids are, doing things, right? And you know how kids are. They're not going to redo something in a different part of the house just because to be on greater Wi-Fi. So I mean, this is the kind of things that really really appeal to me. This is what Wi-Fi, good Wi-Fi can bring to you.
So we have one more question. I think after that, we're gonna close this up because we're meeting our time limit. So the last question comes from Tommy Voy 1313, and we responded to him, but I think we can give a little bit more of an explanation, or maybe you can. Can I use one of these devices to replace the router that came from my cable company?
Absolutely. So a cable company probably ships you, or you've gone out and purchased from a retail store, a combination of a modem, whether it's a cable modem or a DSL modem, and another, and it has a Wi-Fi connection on it and a bunch of things. We make a ton of those. You can buy them on your usual retail store or online store. But what Orbi allows you to do is that you just take an Ethernet cable, plug it into the yellow port, the WAN port on the back of the Orbi, and plug the other end into that cable modem. You take the satellite, put it in somewhere in the center of your house. It's that simple. You don't have to worry about how many walls it's going through, or line of sight or anything like that. And just change the SSID to whatever you want it to be, put in your PSK or your password, and you'll be up and running. So you can absolutely run it in parallel with whatever device your cable modem or your cable provider provided to you. So that's all the time we have for questions. Thank you for joining us. This has been a whole lot of fun. Enjoy your Orbis.